He's taught millions of people around the world how to get rich. Now, best-selling author and financial expert Robert Kiyosaki shows you the secrets to generating a lifetime of passive income through real estate investment. Get ready to go on the road with Robert Kiyosaki and Dolf.
Hello, my name is Robert Kiyosaki, and I'm the author of the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. When I was just 9 years old, my rich dad began to teach me how to become a real estate investor. And the way he taught me was through that game most of us know about, the game called Monopoly. And he said, son, on this game board Monopoly is a formula for great wealth. And most of us know that formula. It's 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. And that's how my real estate investment career began, with that simple education and lessons from my rich dad. And that is why I was able to retire in 1994 at a relatively young age of 47 because of the simple investment steps my rich dad taught me. In this program, I will be sharing with you those same simple real estate investment tips my rich dad shared with me years ago. And to assist us in this program is my dear friend, author of the book Real Estate Riches, Dr. Dolf. Welcome, Dolf.
Thank you, Robert.
You're a doctor because you have a PhD of electrical engineering. Is that true?
That's correct, yes.
And isn't it also true you've never had a job?
Never had a job.
Well, please tell them why.
Well, it's very simple. I went through engineering school. I spent 8 years at university getting a PhD. And at the end of that time, I was offered a job at $32,000 a year, which in those days was a pretty handsome salary. However, unbeknown to my prospective employer, the week before I had just done a real estate deal that netted me $35,000. And I remember thinking to myself, why would anyone in their right mind work for 40 hours a week for 50 weeks of the year for $32,000 when in 1 week you can make $35,000? And I decided there and then to get into real estate, and I've never had a job.
So you would highly recommend real estate as an excellent form of investing?
Well, I'm very biased, but I think it's the best. I think there's nothing better, and I have specific reasons why I think that.
So in this program, we're going to show people how simple it is, right?
Right.
I mean, doesn't it surprise you that everybody's not doing it?
When you know how simple it is, it's astounding that people don't get up and look for a deal. They'd rather sit in front of the TV and watch other people's creations than make their own.
Or even worse, I watch people sitting in front of television sets watching the stock market go up and stock market going down and up, and that's horrible.
Right.
The only thing that Dolf and I have is we have cash flow. I mean, checks every month, money flowing in, right?
Right, and on top of that, the assets that generate those cash flows keep on going up.
Right. So there's 4 great advantages to real estate as an investment. Number 1 is you have income every month, which means you can soon quit your job if you want to. Number 2 is that you have tax advantages. You know, there's so many tax advantages too. Number 3 is you have depreciation. Right. Which is another form of tax advantage. And number 4 is you have capital gains. So you have money coming in, government's giving all these bonuses. Right. You have all these gains that are somewhat tax-free, and on top of all that is the banker will lend you money for real estate. Is that correct?
That's one of the big fundamental differences. In fact, imagine going to a bank manager and saying, Mr. Bank Manager, I believe antiques are a good investment, and paintings, and platinum, and gold, and stocks, and mutual funds, and certificates of deposits, and treasury bills. Would you please lend me the money so that I may invest in these things? He will laugh you out of his office.
That's right. They may lend you money on you, but they won't lend you money on the stock or mutual funds simply because they're too risky.
They're too risky.
That should tell you something.
Right. It tells you 2 things. Firstly, you don't need the money to buy real estate. And secondly, it's about the safest thing there is to invest in.
Right. If it wasn't safe, a banker wouldn't give you the money.
Right.
So it's a fabulous way of, you know, finding financial stability and a financial brightness for your future.
Right.
What we'll be doing this weekend is we'll be going with a young couple. It'll be their first real estate investment foray into the world there. As we talk to them, we'll be sharing our secrets through the real world of investing. In this program, you will learn about the 6 basic and simple steps my rich dad taught me on how to be a successful real estate investor. Step number 1, decide to be an investor. This is very important. This means the most important thing is to invest in your education. Step 2, find an area. Areas go up, areas go down, and areas go sideways. To me, the area is far more important than the property. Step 3, identify potential investment properties. Step 4, analyze, make offers, and then negotiate the agreement between buyer and seller. Step 5, put the investment together, which means financing and doing your due diligence, checking out the structures of the property. Step 6, property management. The important thing is this. You must have the 6. If you only have 4, the real estate deal falls apart. Would you agree with that, Dolf?
Totally. If you're missing one, then you won't have an integrated package. It won't work.
Right. Another thing, too, is those 6 steps will work in any city throughout the U.S. or any city throughout the world. Is that correct also?
All over the world. It's international.
Right. So if you're going to be a property investor, a real estate investor, these 6 steps are important, and this will be covered throughout the program. You will learn these 6 steps that will make the process of becoming a successful real estate investor a fun, inspirational, and profitable one. But the first step is this, is you must decide to learn. Would you say that's true?
You have to make that decision. If you don't decide to become an investor, then you'll never get around to completing the other steps.
Right, because each step requires learning. There's one more thing I'd like to say, is start small, right? We started on small deals.
Very small, ridiculously small almost, but we cut our teeth on those to give us the confidence to go forward.
Right. The thing is, we're active learners.
All the time.
Are you constantly studying?
Constantly. Even yesterday we were talking with each other, sharing some ideas, and we both learned something new that we didn't know.
Right, and they say we learn something new every day, but the question is, what are you learning new every day? So if you want to become a property investor, step number 1 of Rich Dad's 6 steps is decide to be an investor in your education. True?
Right.
Then we go out there and do it, and you learn along the way as you go. Those 6 steps will make the whole process fun, easy, and understandable. So what you'll be getting from this program are not only the simple words of advice and wisdom my rich dad gave me, but you'll also be getting Dolph's and my own personal experiences. So what you'll be gaining is the inspiration as well as the tools, but most importantly the what?
Most importantly of all, you'll get the confidence to go out there and find your own deals, to get your own passive income, and to set yourselves up for the rest of your lives to have that income there.
So let's get started.
To help put their principles into action, Robert and Dolf chose to work with Ryan and Kim Rogers, first-time real estate investors. Having just purchased a home for themselves, Ryan and Kim had little of their own money to put down, but they were willing to learn and ready to find their first investment property.
Hi, you're Ryan and you're Kim?
Yes.
And I'm Robert and Dolf. How you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hey, Ryan.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Hey, Kim.
Hi.
So I understand you've just bought your first home, and now you're interested in becoming real estate investors. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
Before we go into it, can you tell us why, or I mean, you're very young, why would you be so motivated to suddenly get involved in investing? So, Kim, why don't you?
I don't know. Well, I think a big factor for me is just that I don't want to work the rest of my life, and I especially don't want to work hard for money the rest of my life also. And I mean, I just really want to get to the point where I can enjoy life and
Not work hard.
To work for a living.
have enough money to relax.
Good. And what's your motivation?
Well, I think the biggest thing is working for somebody else and not knowing if there's going to be a guarantee, with all the problems there are. You see all these big corporations going down and, the job security thing, worrying about your job, and whether that security is going to be there in the future. That's my biggest motivation. And maybe leaving up more time for family stuff. When we start having a family, it's, instead of having to work hard and be tired at the end of the day where you don't have time for your family, it'd be nice to have other options to...
Well, what we're going to be talking about is basically a process that Dolf and I use, 6 steps. It's the same process my rich dad basically taught me years ago when I was just nine years old. And, well, how old were you when you bought your first property?
First property at 17.
Yeah. My first property was 24 when I actually bought something. Let me ask you this. You've already bought a house, right? Mm-hmm. Do you suspect that buying a personal residence is different than buying an investment property?
Yeah. So I think I don't know as far as we've been. I don't know if there's a difference about looking at property if it's personal or rental, but it definitely, if you're going to invest in the property for tenants to live there, it doesn't necessarily have to have the flashy things and the nice faucets and stuff like that. Paint can cover stuff up. And
They're very smart, aren't they?
Very smart, yeah. You didn't go out looking for something that you wanted to live in for the next 20 years.
Right. No.
You already had half a mind to how would this rent out as a rental proposition.
Yeah, I want to commend you, too, because looking for a personal residence is different than looking for an investment property. The process is basically the same, But there are subtle differences, right?
Right. You should never let emotions come into an investment property. As we always say, fall in love with the deal, but not with the property. Now, when it comes to a home to live in, at some stage, you're going to want to have certain personal, emotional factors come into play. Would you enjoy living there? And since you're going there every night, you might as well enjoy it. But for an investment property, you should never let that rule.
So anyway, do you have any questions for us, or anything you'd like to know? Or
I guess just, starting out as an investor, I mean, you don't understand the whole real estate process. I mean, we just bought our first home, but it seems like they kind of rush you through it, and, everything kind of holds you. But as far as investing and learning how the investment process works, I guess that's, where to start and how to come up, we're limited on money, and if you're limited on money, how do you get going in the real estate,
That's great.
I think one of my questions would be is that now that we have first bought our first property and we do want to invest further in real estate, how would you do that? We've used all our sources of money and things like that, and how do you move on?
And you're still in school, right?
Yeah.
That is a big issue. For most people, they say to buy real estate, you need a lot of money. Real estate is more expensive than a stereo or a car or anything, so it's easier to buy those things first rather than the real estate. And the interesting thing is that to buy real estate, you don't really need the money. And we're not even talking about the bulk of it in the form of the mortgage. Most people think you still need a down payment of 10 or 20%. And the interesting thing is you can get away without even having to put up cash for that down payment. Now, we're getting into some pretty fancy techniques, which we'll share more information on later. But just to give you the seed of an idea, the biggest source of finance that you can use for your down payment that most people overlook is when there's a house on the market. You can go to the seller and simply say, would you be willing to leave in 20%? And often they will say, no way, I need the money. But very often, surprisingly often, they'll say, yeah, that sounds reasonable. It might be an elderly couple that's going to go into retirement. They're going to take the proceeds and put it in the bank. And in the bank at the moment, you can't get more than about 2%. You might offer them 6% interest on that money, a second mortgage, and they'll be happy. They'll thank you for it. So I don't think that not having the money is the biggest stumbling stone at all.
I think if you go and see the process that Dolf and I will take you through, like I said, leave the money at home. Just go through the process. In other words, never leave money or not having money be the excuse for you not to invest. Because what has happened for my wife Kim, she's named Kim also, is that we've never found a deal we could really afford. I mean, most of the time we found deals and we're going, holy moly, this is a great deal. We're going to make, if I put this deal together, I'm going to make a lot of money. And not that it sounds that good, but that old saying from the movie Wall Street, greed is good. I mean, when you find a way, when you find a hot deal, doesn't it inspire you?
That is so good that you can't let it go. You'll find the money one way or another.
The great thing about the two of you, you bought your first house, you realize you're short in funds, but you're still out there looking. And I think that's the most important thing.
Right, that's what's going to put you into a position to be able to do a deal somehow.
The trick with being a real estate investor, you have to buy something that puts money in your pocket every month and keeps going up in value, hopefully. So you've already started on a good footing, so congratulations. Another step in Rich Dad's 6-step process is to find an area you like. For example, in any market, markets move up, markets move down, and markets move sideways. They're called trends. So what you want to look for is the area, hopefully, that's moving up. Would you agree with that?
Totally, yes.
Like we always talked about, there's some cities where people are moving out of.
They're in decline.
Right, and people are moving into.
Right.
And generally, where would you rather invest?
Well, obviously where people are moving into. But the interesting thing is, unlike the stock market, where it's very difficult to know which markets are going to go up and which areas of that market are going to go down, with real estate, you can follow the trends because they're so slow to evolve. A city that's had high growth in one year is likely to have had high growth the year before and will have high growth the following year, and similarly those with slow growth. So it's very easy to figure out which cities and which suburbs within cities and which clusters of streets within suburbs are likely to do well in the future just by watching the past. And you don't get that luxury with many other markets. They're far more fickle and volatile.
Right. So in any market, any investment, you have to watch the trends. There's always 3 trends, up, down, and sideways. Another way people become very successful in choosing the area first is sometimes you look for an area that's been down for years, and suddenly it comes back to life again. Those are really good. good, aren't they?
They're great, and then the trick is finding when it's in the bottom, because then it's about to take off.
And the prices are really low.
Prices are low. Most people make the mistake of buying when it's at the top. They think, wow, this is going really well, and they buy at that peak, and then the only way to go along is sideways or down again.
Right. And if you're just starting out, let me give you one more tip that I learned the hard way. My first investment property I bought on another island, in the island from Hawaii. So I had a problem in this piece of property. It meant I had to catch a plane, fly there, rent a car, and go check my property. And so this problem persisted for a while, and so for 2 days a week I was getting on a plane, flying to another island, renting a car, look at this property. So that added to the next thing. If you're going to find an area, make sure it's close to your house. And so I would recommend this, is find an area that you can even walk to. You know, in my book I talk about how the first investment property that Kim and I bought together, I used to jog past this neighborhood. So if it's close enough to jog to, it's close enough. It's a great area. Or find an area that you can drive when you're, going back and forth to work. The reason is when you're first starting out, you're bound to make a few mistakes. So make sure the area is close by. It's another good choice.
Right, so that you don't spend 2 days a week just getting there to fix one minor problem.
How do you start out as far as, if you've never done this stuff before? How do you find the deals? How do you go out and, where do you start? What neighborhoods? If you don't know how to start this process, how do you do it?
So we'll start just by looking first at areas. You want to find out if it's going up, down, or going sideways. Then and what we're going to take you to are 3 houses, or we're going to look at property, should I say, of about the same price point, and let you decide whether or not one makes more sense than the other.
It's not so much the price, but the trend, as Robert's been saying. So there'll be some areas where you've got a reason to know why the trend will be upwards. And the thing that always amuses me about real estate relative to other investments is it's so easy to know what a trend is going to be in real estate. For instance, if you're buying just about any other investment, but the one that most people get into is stocks, it is so hard to know which category of stocks is going to be the next one to go up. And often it's very volatile. They'll be up one week, down the next week. 18 months ago, everyone thought technology stocks were the way to go, and we all know what's happened there. When it comes to real estate, the trends are not nearly as volatile. They're much smoother. It's very easy to get the statistics on which cities have been doing better than average in this country and which cities have been doing worse than average. Even within cities, there are suburbs that do better than average and others that do worse than average. So it's easy to get this information, and that will help you determine anywhere in the world where you should be buying.
After you've identified the area that you want to invest in, hopefully one that's going up, at that point you begin looking at properties, the actual sticks and bricks as I call it. Now, Dolf, do you care if the property is ugly?
Not only do I not care, I like it if the property is ugly.
You like problems, right?
Well, they're not problems to me, they're challenges. You see, if there are problems, they're perceived problems, then everyone else values that property very lowly.
Right.
But I know that for a very small expenditure, I can massively increase the value of that property. So I love challenges.
Right. So that's why I say to people, fall in love with the area, but not necessarily the house. In fact, a lot of times I look for the best area with the ugliest house.
Right.
And only at that point do I start looking at multiple properties. I don't want to get attached to any one. Is that correct?
Correct. And you have to look at a lot of properties. People make the mistake of looking at 2 or 3 and trying to make a decision. You've got to look at dozens and dozens, and all of a sudden one will pop out as being spectacular.
Yeah, sometimes you walk into a property that's not even listed just because you're looking around the area.
Right. It might be for sale by owner or something like that, or people hear that you're looking to say, well, actually, my cousin's got one for sale. I wonder what he wants for it.
Right. So after you find this area, you become this expert, and once you become this expert, let's say you're jogging or riding your bike around and everybody knows you're looking for investments, suddenly people start giving you all these great deals and these properties. So that's the next step. After you've identified the area, then you start looking for the properties, and oftentimes I don't really care if they're bad. In fact, some of them can be too bad or too broken. But you're looking for problems sometimes, or sometimes they don't have to be a problem. It's just great deals. In this program, we'll be looking at different areas and only a few pieces of property. But I caution you, in the process of finding the property, if you're just starting out, I highly recommend you look at 100 pieces of property before you make an offer. In other words, leave your checkbook at home, leave your wallet at home, leave your purse at home. Go and look at 100 properties. Don't buy anything. Would you agree with that?
Totally. It's a numbers game. You cannot expect to go out and look at maybe 10 or 15 properties and have a spectacular deal amongst those. It might happen, but chances are it won't. And even if it is there, you'll have no reference to go by. You won't know if it's a good deal.
I would say this is a must of this step. Learning to love to just look at properties. We've looked at tens of thousands, haven't we?
Over the years. And whenever we go anywhere, we always get out and look at real estate, be it on holiday or whatever.
Right, so this goes back to point number one, is decide to learn, to become an investor, because you learn something new every day. Every time I go to a new piece of property, I learn something new.
Which helps you in deciding whether the next one is good or not.
And remember that time you were teaching this course and you have this formula of 100, 10, 3, 1. In other words, 100 properties, you make offers on 10, you get 3 accepted, and you just buy 1. So 1 out of 100 you buy. And this one guy in your class stood up and said, I've looked at 20, I haven't found anything yet. Remember him?
Yeah, well, he was angry, but he only looked at 20, and he cannot expect to find a great deal by looking only at 20. And most people give up, you see. This is, I think, one of the best rules there is. Look at 100 pieces of property. Most people will go out, they'll look at 13 one weekend, they might look at 15 the next weekend, and they'll say, gee, I've looked at 28 already. But the weekend after that it's raining and they don't look, and the weekend after that Cousin Mary's getting married, and all of a sudden they say more to themselves than anyone else, it doesn't work.
Right.
You've got to look at the numbers.
And it becomes so much fun. And, you know, the best part about it, if out of those 100 you find one that makes you rich for the rest of your life, it's worth it, right?
It's self-explanatory, yeah. And
fabulous.
You can find one every week if you put your mind to it.
Right, and after a while, it becomes a process. It becomes a way of life. And that's why I say the first time, find an area near your property, near where you live or where you work, and make a regular process through it. You're looking at them, studying them. But what you were saying is most people look harder for a car.
Right, they'll spend more time, more weekends going out to look for a car that will depreciate and go down in value over time and only serve them for 5 years anyway, than they do going out looking for one piece of real estate that might feed them for the rest of their lives.
As an additional point, I'd like to add that when you're finding your area and identifying pieces of real estate, this is where your broker becomes very important. Not all brokers are equal. Not all brokers have the same intelligence. As you're going through the area and looking at different properties, you'll soon find out the brokers you like and brokers who like you, right?
Right.
And then also, not all brokers work with investors. Most of them work with home buyers, especially the first time. So there's, the kitchen's important. How pretty is the paint and all that. Well, we don't care about that. So on top of finding the right broker, you have to find one that understands you, and hopefully is an investor himself or herself.
Right. Most brokers that understand you, that have the same mentality, are investors. And don't ever be put off by a broker who is an investor. Don't think, well, if there's any good deal that comes along, he'll take it for himself. No broker can buy every deal that comes across his desk.
Yeah.
The advantage of a broker that does invest is he understands the mentality, understands what we're after, that we don't care whether the deli on the corner is good or not. We just want a good deal.
Yeah. Investors think different than home buyers.
Right.
And so, Dolf, there's questions you can ask a broker to find out whether or not they're compatible with you or share the same investment philosophy. Is that correct?
Sure. In fact, often what I do when I go into a new area, an area that's new for me anyway, is I will go to a real estate firm at random and just go up to the person at reception and say, tell me, who would be your best investment broker that you have here? And if he or she says something like, well, I don't know, they're all good, then I know I'm in the wrong place, so I go on to the next firm. But let's assume I come across someone who says, well, actually, that would have to be Frank or Sally. Then I say, well, I'd like to speak with them, please. And I've got a couple of questions for them, too. The first one might be, all right, Frank, could you show me what are your top 3 investment properties that you have on your books at the moment?
That's my favorite question. I say, what do you think is the hottest deal you got right now? Yeah.
And if they say, well, gee, they're all good, which one would you like to see first? I know I'm dealing with the wrong person. But if they say, well, actually, the top deal, the hottest deal we've got would have to be this one here, I'm almost there. I'm not quite there because I still have one more question to ask, and that is why?
What's your criteria? Well, how did you analyze this thing? And in analyzing, you find out whether or not you are in the same wavelength.
Whether we're compatible, whether they think the same way. If they say, well, the deli down the road has just the best sauerkraut or whatever, then I know I've got the wrong person.
I went to this one place, and the guy said, this is the best deal. I said, what is it? It said it was this new construction and all this. All you do is put $5,000 down, and in 2 years, it'll be worth $100,000 more. That's not an investor. That's a speculator.
That's a speculator.
Right.
But if they say, well, you know, this property sold 5 years ago for $200,000, it's now on the market at $300,000, but all the others around it that are similar are selling for $350,000. I know I've got someone who can speak our language.
Or they hear of somebody, say, a new company is moving into this area and all the properties around it will go up in value. This person is paying attention to what the market is doing and whether it's going up or down.
Right.
So many times real estate agents focus on the house and not the market. So what I'm watching for or listening for, hoping to hear, is I have a real estate broker who is the same thing with me, is they're looking at the area first, the property second.
Exactly.
And when you find a good broker, pay them well. I meet so many people who will tip their waiter 20%, but try and stiff the broker 6% or whatever the commission is. You know, that's tipping somebody who's costing you money rather than tipping somebody who can make you rich. I like to pay my brokers everything. I mean, I like making them rich because they're making me rich too.
Right, right.
In this video, we only have time to go over a few areas and a few pieces of property. But please let me reiterate the importance of looking at as many pieces of property as possible before you break open your checkbook. For this video, we too went through the process of looking at many different pieces of property before choosing these to look at.
With help from Ryan and Kim, we decided to focus on just a few key areas quite near where they lived. Some areas had a clear history of trending upwards in value. Others hadn't yet begun to significantly appreciate but showed good potential to do so. And others still showed a likelihood of remaining fairly stable in value. Each property we looked at had asking prices in a similar range, but because of the areas they were in, they showed very different potentials for cash flow and appreciation. The first property we looked at was in a quite desirable neighborhood near an upscale shopping center. A very solid-looking rancher, it had 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and an asking price of $139,900.
As we're talking about, area is very important. Houses are houses, but area is very important. 1 block to the south, all the high-end car dealerships, Porsches and Ferrari. About 3 blocks to the east over there are very high-end tourist attractions. And just 5 or 6 blocks to the north here are the high-end shopping centers, fashion parks. So this is a great, stable neighborhood. Wouldn't you say that?
I agree, and when you look down the street, you can see that all the houses here are very straight and tight and clean. It looks as though it's a very well-kept neighborhood. Yeah. And this house in particular, I think it looks very tidy, just from what we've seen here. It's got a very clean concrete pad here. The roof line is very straight. It just looks a very neat house that you'd feel comfortable renting out to someone.
What Dolf is talking about is when you first walk up to, it's called curb appeal. How does it emotionally hit you? Does it look clean? Does it draw you in, or does it push you away? So if you're a renter, who you would rent it to, they would say, oh, this, you know, I'd like to live here. And that's very important. Like, I look at the roof. That's a great-looking roof.
Mm-hmm. Right. In fact, I think it's been extended because when you compare this house with the ones either side of it, they've all got carports with just a wall at the end, and I think they've boxed this one in and extended the roof line. It gives the impression that the house is a lot bigger than perhaps it is.
Well, what Dolf is pointing out, there's carports there and carports there, but this is an enclosed garage. So as a renter, I'd feel like my car would be protected.
Right.
And so they're thinking about their cars.
Right.
What do you guys notice when you first walk up?
Well, like you said, I do notice that it's kept in pretty good shape. I mean, that's what appeals to me if I was a renter, you know, and I notice the concrete, there's no cracks, or the windows are all straight, there's no broken glass or anything like that, so I'd feel comfortable living in a place like this.
Right. Well, that, of course, is the outside, and it remains to be seen what it's like on the inside, because quite often someone might do up the outside to give the impression that it looks good, whereas on the inside it turns out to be not the same. So I'm keen to see what it's like inside. Is the kitchen and the bathrooms, you know, up to standard?
Here comes a realtor now.
Hi, I'm Bob. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you, Robert. This is Dolf.
Hi, Dolf. How are you?
Good to meet you.
This is Kim.
Hi, Kim. How are you?
Nice to meet you.
And this is Ryan.
Hi, Ryan. Nice to meet you.
So, what can you tell us about this area?
Well, I grew up in this area. It's a great area for rentals. It was built in about 1958, and when they were originally built, they probably cost between $8,000 and $11,000.
And today it's about $140,000?
About $140,000. They've, you know, virtually doubled in value every 10 years. And
so in 1990?
Well, in 1990, these houses were selling for right around $80,000, and if a person would have put $8,000 or 10% down then, they would have earned a 68.5 annual rate of return. So it's
Now
a
that's
great
annual.
place. Annually, right.
It's phenomenal.
And so this is a nice, stable area.
Very stable area, great place to live, great place for me to grow up and have my daughter in too.
You've seen it change quite a bit.
It's, you know, it gets a little bit more traffic, but it's a growth area. It's just, you know, a lot of people want to live here. So
Right. It's a great location. Huh?
yes, great location.
All right, well, let's go inside and have a look what it's like on the
Okay,
inside.
let's go take a look.
Great.
Oh, look at this. It's very nice in here. Huh?
So, well, one of the first things I noticed is the fireplace here, and things that tenants like tend to be something like a fireplace where you can have an open fire, and it's kind of got a unique style about it too, so that's nice.
It's very quaint.
Very quaint.
And look at that. That's 1970s disco. You know?
Whoa, look at those mirrors. I mean, that really is bad.
You can just pull that right off of there and...
Yeah, the good thing
Paint it.
about, exactly, Kim, it's just perfectly. All you do is take it off. It's not expensive to do. I mean, you can do that, you know, in an hour at the most.
Right.
And then you get a little paint, and it would be very nice. And if you look at this carpet here, right now the carpet looks dirty, but it's a high-quality carpet. And I think with a good cleaning, it'll bring it right up. And you could probably get 2 or 3, you know, more years use out of it. But it's a very high quality.
It's in very good condition, yeah, yeah.
Again, the whole house reeks of quality. It's just, you know, back in the 1950s, as Bob says here. Let's go in the kitchen and see what we have here.
Alrighty. Well, this is interesting. Just looking down at the tiles, you know, they're in perfect condition and they don't look dated at all. It's very, very straight. The bench here too. I see it's got a dual sink with a single faucet over it, so that's pretty modern. The thing that does stand out in my mind, though, is these cabinets here. While they're straight and tidy and they look as though they're very operational, the color scheme really, I think, is from the 1950s. I'd hazard a guess that these are the original colors they had here. And I think a coat of paint could do wonders in transforming this.
How much, Kim, how much do you think it would cost to paint this?
Oh, maybe less than $20.
Yeah,
$20, yeah. You see, the whole thing is that to do this up, to change those panels and the mirrors and the color of the paint in here, we're not talking big dollars at all. And the perceived value when you'd walk in, if you did those changes, it would be much higher.
Yeah, it's a very good quality house. And look at this here. I was just looking at this. Push this button. And look, they have these metal roller protectors, like garage doors for your windows. They're everywhere. And, you know, that means more security. If you had an older tenant come in here, they would just feel very comfortable, safe in here. This whole house, you know, reeks of safety.
And that's a great point, because we've talked about the solidity of the house, how that makes it very good from a landlord's perspective. It's very hard to destroy this house. But things like this grill here, that makes it very appealing for a tenant to be here and live here. So you'll find it eminently rentable because it's a very safe house from a tenant's perspective.
If you advertise this as a very safe, secure house with, you know, protected windows, it attracts a different type of tenant. They probably stay longer, too.
Yeah.
Look out in the backyard and look out there.
Okay.
Here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, you can tell by the construction here right away that they almost overbuilt it, so that shows really pride of ownership, and they did a great job. And I mean, look at this slab here. This is very solid construction.
It's so extensive, too. It's
Yeah.
a huge, big slab.
It is almost overbuilt, but that's a good sign. The person took care of it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Compared to that house over there, I mean,
Yeah.
you can tell.
A little chintzy.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a lot more flimsy.
And for people with kids, you know, they have the solid cinder wall, hollow tile wall. It's fabulous. I mean, it's
Right.
very quality place, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's in perfect condition, too. If you look over here at the gate going to the alleyway.
Well, security reasons, you know, like you said, the solidness, to me, is like a security, especially with kids, you know.
Yeah.
It's a security, big, tall walls, solid walls.
It's great.
Right. Let's
And then-
look through here.
Let's go over here. Hey, look at this here. I mean, this is the storage room. I call it a Bubba room. You know, you can put your tools and store all your bicycles and all the things you can't fit in your house. This is a great feature right here.
Yeah.
But I'd say this was part of the original house. And then here in the garage, they've obviously just turned what was originally a carport into a garage by putting in the end wall and then just boxing the whole thing in and putting the electric door on it.
So you think this was open at one time, huh?
Right. Right, just like the houses either side of it.
Right. And so now this is...
So much more security for your vehicle. It makes the house look far more substantial. And anything in here is dry. It's not just secure, it's out of the rain.
True. No cracks on the floor.
No.
Yeah.
Very well
Yeah,
done.
it's generally a very solid-looking place, and again, the only downside is there's nothing you can add to it. You can't turn a carport into a garage because it's already been done, you know.
Yeah. But for somebody who is like me, who's not good as a handyman, this is perfect, you know, because I don't have to do much for it, just paint it and a few other things. But it's a very solid, well-built house. It'll last for years. So I would summarize, you know, this is an excellent house in an excellent neighborhood. It's indestructible. It'll last for years. It has appeal to a renter. And for somebody like me, I don't have to do much to it. So I love it because it's high quality, good neighborhood. My investment would be secure. But, you know, for somebody like Dolf, he would say this wouldn't appeal to you because it's too well built, maybe, huh?
Well, it's not too well built as such. There's just little I can do. I like things with a twist where I can add value to it without spending much money. Now, having said that, if the numbers work, it's still a great investment. I'd be interested. And what I like about it is from a tenant's point of view, they would feel secure here. They would feel as though when they come in with their car, they can lock it, and if they go away for a week, no one knows whether the car's here or not. It's not an obvious indicator as to whether you're at home or on holiday or something. So I think it's got great tenant appeal as well. And again, if the numbers work, it's a great investment.
Yeah, this house is almost indestructible. Great neighborhood, secure neighborhood, and the house is even more secure, so I think it has a lot of pluses in that part. But you say, if the numbers work, that's what counts.
Sure.
Well, Dolf, what did you think, looking through it?
Well, certainly on the outside, it looks very straight and tidy. The inside is also good. It's not quite up to the same standard. It's got some things that look a bit older. But I think overall, this is a very clean property. There's very little that needs doing to it. I think it is simply a numbers game. Do the numbers work? In other words, what can you buy this for? And what are the rentals? And what are your expenses? It's going to be a simple exercise of analyzing the numbers to see if it's a good investment.
Right, on a scale of 1 to 10, as far as a rental property, I'd probably give it an 8. It's solid, solid, solid. Great area. What do you guys think?
That was pretty good inside. It was fairly clean. I mean, it needed a little updating here and there, new paint. But other than that, I thought it was in pretty good shape.
You know what I liked about this house? It's indestructible. You know, I mean, it's a tough, well-built house.
Right, brick and concrete, and there's little that can go wrong.
It's a quality house, and it's solid. That's what I like about it.
There's probably little you can do to add value here. I mean, we're at one of the houses either side, then you could turn the carport into a garage, but that's not possible in this case, and there are many other things that are not possible to do here. It's not as if the driveway needs sealing or anything. But that's why I say it's simply an exercise in working out the numbers. If the numbers work, it's a good deal.
Kim, your final impression of a house, you know, since you and Ryan will be investing it together, what do you think of it?
I think it's great. It's in good condition. Just needs a little bit of updating, like paint, simple things, maybe tearing off some old mirrors and stuff like that. But
so you could give it the nice woman's touch to it.
Oh yeah, the once over.
Yes, that would be nice. Well, we have a lot of other houses to look at, and so let's keep going. This is a nice one, but let's find out. Let's see what we can find.
Let's go.
It's exciting.
All right. Our next property was in a very different part of town, one that showed signs of really trending upward in the years to come. Listed as a fixer-upper, it had a separate guest house and an asking price of $102,000. We were curious to see if it would offer us the kind of twist that we could use to quickly increase its value.
Well, as you can see, this is an older house. It was probably built around 1930, so it's 25 years older than the house we saw in the newer neighborhood. The reason we want to look here, though, is this neighborhood is older, it's gone down, but it's coming up right now. Just a block away, people have taken exact same houses like these, refixed them up, made it a beautiful neighborhood all along the street, and they're now going for around $350,000. So this one has a huge potential, but the question is, you know, it's advertised as a fixer-upper. It's about $102,000 asking price. But the question is for the money you put into it, will it make sense? Can you fix this house? That's the question.
Right. Or for a similar price, can you get one that needn't be fixed up? That's good as is.
So this is a great neighborhood. The question is, this is a great house that's worth investing in. That's really the question. Why don't we go around and take a look in back and see what's there? There's a guest house back. I think we can look at that. Okay.
All right.
Mike, look at that.
Yeah, and the hole up there.
Look at the cracks there, the cracks there.
Right.
Look at this master carpentry work here. Obviously, I think this house is it's cracked up front and it's cracked at back.
Right.
At 102,000, I wouldn't begin to guess how much it would take to make sure it was safe and sound. I think we have a lot of problems underneath. Huh?
Right.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's more work than I'd be willing to take on. Just a first look, a first glance at it, I think it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. We'd put a lot of money. Like I said, this is a great, great neighborhood, a great area. But this may be a house that, unfortunately, has nice design at one time. But I think it's absolutely too old, too busted, too gone.
Right. The effort it would take to do it up, you could better spend looking for the next good deal.
Yeah, it's better to invest your time rather than your money looking for a better deal.
Right.
But let's go look at the guest house. That's one of those selling features the agent told us about. So look at this. If the guest house is good, who knows? Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, gee.
Jeez. Look at this. Look at all this.
Well, my first reaction is this is not a guest house. This is a juxtaposition of sheds and lean-tos, and I don't even think some of this is up to code.
Yeah, this is a fire hazard. It's a danger.
Right.
You know, when we called the realtor said that we could get $600 a month rent for this. Well, that might be possible, but I sure hate to meet the person that paid me $600 to live in here. I think it would cost more than the house, this little guest house is worth to fix it than it's worth.
Right.
So I really think this whole project, you know, even though it's got some character, like I said, it's a great neighborhood, but there's better investments. This would be a waste of time and money and effort, and I think the price is unrealistic, even though it's the lowest price in the neighborhood.
I agree. I think for this price, we should see what else can we get in this region and see, you know, how that would perform relative to this.
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty good at fixing things up, but this is a major job.
Yeah, this is more work than I want to get into.
Yeah. And it would cost more than you would ever get your money out. So there's far better investments. Let's go look at other things.
Okay. Just a few blocks away, our next property looked like a far better deal. Listed for $129,900, it was a fully renovated bungalow with lots of backyard space and terrific curb appeal.
Well, Kim, what did you think?
Well, I think it's a vast improvement from the house a couple blocks away that had the cracks all the way down the front. And
Yeah, what a difference, huh?
Yeah, what a difference. I mean, could you have fixed that other house?
no.
No, that house was cracked. But here we are, the same house, about 1930, same style, same design, structurally sound, much more improved. But, you know, the question is, what do you think this house will be worth, 5 to 10 years from now? It's a great neighborhood. Right. It's got charm. It's very old and charming. It's fabulous.
And it's been well cared for, you can tell.
Did you see those floors and the paint?
Yeah.
It was spectacular. They really brought it up well. I mean, this is a great value. But really, we're going to have to find out now how good an investment it is, and that the numbers will tell us, right?
Right, because this one's they're asking about $130,000 for it, so it's a bit steeper than the others in price. And again, the analysis will determine whether it's a good deal or not.
But it's a solid value, great neighborhood, fabulous house. I love what they've done inside it. I couldn't do it that good.
Right, right.
It's really well done.
I have noticed across the road there's another for sale sign.
Really?
Yeah, another house there. So I suggest while we're here we check it out and see if it's any good too. You know, whereas the house we've just looked at was $129,900, this one here I see is only $114,000. Not altogether unexpected. The one there has a lot of charm, and this one, I'd say, with the way the front yard is, it doesn't really have the same appeal.
Yeah, you almost can't see it because it's just so not attractive from the outside. The landscaping is terrible.
Right, and we wouldn't really have noticed this one had we not been looking at that other one, but I say, since we're here anyway, let's have a look inside.
Yeah, let's go take a look at it.
Wow, this is spacious.
Oh, wow.
It looks as though it's one open plan area, dining, living, and kitchen area. Look too how it's got windows on all three of the walls. One big one down the side, the big one up front here, and then at the rear as well. Lots of light.
What's amazing is that it doesn't look that good from the outside, but from the inside,
Right.
this is spectacular.
Spectacular, yeah.
Really, really well done. It's only like a block away from that really frightening house with cracks all over. It was cracked. That one was 102, just a block or two away. This is 114, and all the hard work's already been done. Right. Obviously, I've done a nice job of it.
Right. And look at this, it all looks new. It looks as though the kitchen's completely new. New benches, new stove, new range hood. There's nothing you could do here, really. It's ready to be moved in.
But it's tastefully done. It's, you know, isn't it appealing?
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't even have to put my finishing touches on this one.
Well, there you go. All right, let's check out down the back.
Parts.
Oh, well, on the left here we have, gee, this is a full bathroom. It's got a lavatory, a bath, and a shower. All brand new by the looks of things.
That's
Oh, yeah, that's real nice.
On the
Very
right,
well done.
here's the first bedroom, second large bedroom, and then here there is the third bedroom. This looks as though it's the master because there's another bathroom here. In fact, this one also has a lavatory, a bath, and a shower, and then another vanity unit come wash basin.
It's very well done. You know, this house has, what, 2 bathrooms, 3 bedrooms, right?
Right.
And that other house that's just a block away had, what?
Just one bathroom.
That was questionable.
Right, and 2 bedrooms.
But it had a guest house.
Right.
What do you think of this place?
Oh, it's nice. I mean, if there were just me and her moving in, I'd be ready to move in because everything's ready.
Ready to
That's
move
right.
out.
This one's ready to move into. The other one needs a lot of work, and yet the price differential, it's the difference between 114,000 asking price and 102,000.
Right.
You would put so much more money in that house and never get it back. It's the same neighborhood. It's a great neighborhood. Young professionals are moving in here. They have a school right over there, a hospital right over there. It's where the young professionals are moving back in because they can afford to move in here and fix these places up.
Right.
This is a great area. Do you think there's anything else we can do to improve this place?
Well, there's very little you could do on the inside of the house. The only thing I can think of is here in the master bedroom where there is a window, we could turn that into a French door. However, there is a lot we can do outside.
Right.
And that's what really excites me about this
And they've already
place.
spent the big money. The rest is really simple on the outside.
Right, and cosmetic.
Right. This is a well-done place.
Yeah.
Good value. It's very good value.
Yeah. Well, guys, I think we agree that the inside is pretty well done up very nicely. There's little you could do there.
It was surprising. You know?
Very surprising.
Brand new looking.
Robert, you asked what could be done on the outside, and there are 3 things that come to mind first up. One is there's that wooden fence down the back there that's not painted. Now, for about $10, you could paint it and dramatically improve the street appeal of this whole house.
Right.
So that's number 1. Number 2 is why not put a carport in here? The outside wall is already erected. It would be very simple to put in a carport, keep the car out of the sun or the rain or whatever. Really, again, that would improve the value without spending much money at all. But the third option, and the one that I think perhaps is the most appealing, is why not take that fence down altogether? There's a lot of spare land down the back.
Yeah, it's
why
just
not?
wasted.
It's wasted.
Yeah.
Why not build a 2-car garage with a tool shed or something like that attached? And again, that would dramatically lift the value of the house for a very modest expenditure.
And Ryan, you're good, you know, with your hands and tools. Could you put up a 2-car garage back there?
Oh, yeah, no problem. Yeah, it'd be easy. Lots of room back there for it, so...
Yeah.
And that's what I love about this place. Even though it's nearly completely done up, there is still a twist here, and the dramatic twist is the street appeal is not reflective of what it's like on the inside.
Right. And everybody around them, they're improving their property, they're improving their property, they're improving their property. This whole area is coming up. I like that.
Right.
Well, let's look at the front yard, see what we can do here. Well, as I said, it's really spectacular on the inside, but we almost missed this place because it has no curb appeal.
Right.
Look at this thing. This bush here is dead. It doesn't look good, and it's a blank wall.
Right.
I think it needs a door there, maybe a porch, a little rock, you know, walkway up to it. Really make it quaint. Don't you
Make
think
it
so?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Could you put a door in there?
Oh, yeah. Just knock it out and put a door in. It wouldn't be that big of a deal.
They're pretty simple. What about the lawn?
Well, if we change the garden a bit, put in fresh lawn here, perhaps have some flower beds around the edges, and more particularly out front, there's no fence. We could simply put up a white picket fence. And doing all those things would totally lift the curb appeal of this house.
Yeah.
So that it truly reflects what it is on the inside.
Right. But now, I think of all the properties, this has the most value. Great neighborhood, great house. You don't have to put too much money into it. You greatly increase the value. But now it's onto the numbers, right?
Right.
The numbers will tell if it's a good deal or not.
Exactly.
So let's go do
and
the
analyze
numbers.
them.
Yeah. After you've identified the properties, the next step in Rich Dad's 6-step process is how do you analyze the property, and then how do you negotiate an agreement with the seller. And many times in many books or courses I've gone to, people make that so complex it actually turns people off, you know. And what we're going to go into is how to make this process simple, because it's very simple, isn't it?
Right, and it's really easy. When you analyze the property, the magic is revealed.
Yeah, once you find the magic of how you look through the numbers and the negotiations and all that, that's where you find some of the best investments in the world. In this program, you will learn to use a simple approach that you can use to analyze any property in minutes. Well, that was a long day looking at all different types of property, but let's summarize, okay? There's 4 types of incomes we're looking for. One of them is regular cash flow. As an investor, you want cash flow now. You don't want to be feeding it. You want money in your pocket. Number 2 is you would like depreciation, which is called phantom cash flow. Number 3 is you want appreciation. So let's say you buy a place for 100, you want it to go to 150. That's appreciation. And the 4th thing is that the beauty of real estate is sometimes you can take that appreciation out tax-free again, right? So that's what makes all of these deals interesting, because we're trying to figure out which one is the best deal. So Dolf, why don't you take over from here?
Okay, well, there are many factors that come into play when you analyze a property, but ultimately you want to have some measure of how well it's performing. And what we've got here are some indications of how the 4 that we looked at, the 4 that we decided during our tours, were the most likely candidates to be good performers. And the things that you absolutely must take into account, obviously, are the purchase price, because the higher the purchase price for a given rental income, the lower your returns will be. So we've got the purchase price on the first house here. They were asking $139,900. We're going to figure that we can get it at about $135,000. I always say never offer the asking price, because you know you'll get it. You might as well offer something less than the asking price. And if all your offers are being accepted, by the way, you know you're still offering too much. Get a few rejections. You can always offer more.
And then one of the good thing about this house was, even though the price was a little higher, the rents in that area are also higher. I would say that's a pretty stable area, slowly moving up.
Very slowly moving up. If anything, it's moving sideways with just a bit of appreciation.
So although it's probably the more expensive, higher rents, very solid investment, it's be tough to lose any money in this one.
Yeah.
Right. And what we've done in this one is we've taken Bob, the agent's recommendation as to what the rental levels would be there. We've factored into all of these properties a 5% vacancy rate. That's the expected percentage of the time that there will not be a tenant there. We've taken taxes into account, insurances, and other running and maintenance expenses. And what we end up with on that first property is that it looks as though it would have a cash-on-cash return of 14.4%. What that means is for every dollar that you've put into it as a down payment to buy it, you can expect to get 14.4 cents coming out every year as your return. Now that needn't be good nor bad, it's just a number, it's just what the return is.
Is cash on cash, when you factor it in, is it appreciation or just the cash on?
Just the cash. We're taking into account how much cash have we put into it and how much cash are we pulling out. Now it goes without saying that a house in a high appreciation area is going to be more valuable to you than one that's depreciating in value, but we're just looking at cash on cash for now. Mm-hmm. When we then compare it with the second property, well, it's not really a comparison. The second one we looked at was that brick one. Remember the red brick one that was broken?
Fixer-upper?
Well, fixer-upper. I call it a blower-upper because you know, that's about all it's good for. We had an idea of what the rental would be on that. We knew that the asking price was $102,000. But I haven't even gone through the exercise here because, quite frankly, personally, I wouldn't want to own that. I wouldn't want to attempt to fix it up.
Well, it'd be too expensive to fix up.
Right, and the returns then would be way down there.
You'd have so much money going out, and you're a very good handyman, but what do you think?
Yeah, it's too much work. I mean, you'd have to start from over, basically.
Right.
Just too much work there.
And no matter how handy a person is to be able to do something up themselves, it may not be a good use of their time. You might be better off spending that time looking for the next best deal.
Right, so it's a good area, but the house is not that good. I mean, it's beyond, I think it's too bad.
Right, right, beyond redemption. So we then consider the third house we've got here, which was very close by to the brick one that we've dismissed. It was that green cottage that was very charming.
Oh, yeah, it looked the same.
Yeah,
almost the same
it was
period,
wooden,
yeah.
but and brick, and it looked very similar. The price in this case was $129,900. Again, we figured that we can offer something just a little bit less, about $4,000 less. We're working out our calculations on the basis of buying it for $125,000. Again, we've got our rental in there based on what the agents have told us and what we know we can get for those number of bedrooms. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, $1,150 in rent, the same 5% vacancy rate, the same factors that we're taking into account in terms of expenses and property taxes and the like. In this case, our cash-on-cash return is 7.7%. So it's almost exactly half. And here's something you now have to take into consideration. Do you want this first house that's in an area that's reasonably flat at 14.4%? Or do you prefer this one here, the green one, that's in an up-and-coming area at only 7.7%?
Right, let's stress this again. The greenhouse was an area that's been coming down for years, and now it's on this rebound up. And all the young professionals are moving on. So you as an investor have got to say, am I willing to bet on the 7.7% cash return, the income, versus a capital gain that might be bigger? I think the first house would be a steady capital gain, but not as spectacular if things go the way we want them, right?
Right, right. And in general, that is true. Where you have a high capital growth, you tend to have lower returns, and conversely, where you have high returns, you have lower capital growth. And this is a perfect example of that. Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing for me is that if we go on to the house that we spotted when we looked at the greenhouse, remember across the road we saw the for sale sign? Mm-hmm. We didn't expect it to be much, but when we went inside we were all pretty surprised.
Right. All the money's been spent on fixing it up.
It's been spent. And the asking price in this case was $114,000. And at this point I'd say, who in their right mind would buy that red brick house for $102 when you can buy the white one for $114 that's all done up? But even so, let's also assume we can buy it at about $4,000 below the asking price. That brings it in at $110,000. The rental in this case is very similar, $1,150. It's also 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. It's across the road from the greenhouse, so we'd expect the rentals to be about the same. We still have a 5% vacancy rate, and all the other numbers are the same. We now get a cash-on-cash return of 19.5%.
Right across the street.
Across the street from each other. It's nearly triple.
And a lower down payment.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, it really highlights the importance of doing the analysis.
In this program, we'll have actually worksheets here. We'll show you how it's done and all this. I'm not that good at numbers or math, and yet it's really simple. It's simple addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Just knowing where the numbers go is pretty common sense. And Dolf just does it so automatically in his head that he kind of intimidates people. But trust me, it's a very simple process.
So in this case, the return is nearly 20%. That would seem to me to be a pretty spectacular return in a day and age where currently, if you put that deposit in the bank on deposit, you could expect to get maybe 2, if you're lucky, 3% interest on it, and that would be taxable. Now, of course, real estate is taxable, but only after you've taken account of all kinds of deductions that you can't get in any other investment. Mm-hmm. So you're going to get very close to your 19.5% return as an after-tax return. And so, to me, the interesting thing about doing the analysis is it quickly highlights which one is great and which one is still pretty good and which one is mediocre. Because let's face it, if you're used to putting your money in the bank at 2% taxable, 7.7% is still pretty good. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's spectacular. However, you just have to look around a little bit, as we did, during the day, and you will find something even greater.
Well, the good thing about this 19 or 20%, that's just cash on cash. If you bet that that neighborhood is going to come up faster, your overall gain could be even more spectacular.
It will be. And this cash on cash return is just in year 1. We can reasonably expect that after a year, the rentals will go up incrementally, and the year after that, they'll go up again. Your deposit hasn't gone up. Your mortgage payments, at worst, will stay the same if you're on interest only, and if you're on a P&I mortgage, that's where you pay down some of the principal every year, your payments will go down. So that after a while, you are getting more and more money, and it's indexed for inflation.
And the good thing about investment real estate is like right now, you've borrowed money from the bank, and you've got to pay it back. Right. But when you invest in a piece of property, you use your banker's money, and your tenant pays off your mortgage for you. So that's why, when we talk about people saying, let's get out of debt, let's get out of debt. Are you deeply in debt?
I'm horrendously in debt, but I love it.
Yes, I am deeply, deeply in debt.
I don't sleep well at night if I don't have enough debt,
But there's good debt and bad debt. And so this is what we're talking about here. This is good debt because, number one, it's your banker's money. Number two, your tenant's going to pay you for it. And number three, the appreciation that goes up, guess what? Your banker doesn't want any of that. The depreciation, the tax advantages, your banker doesn't want any of that either. They're passing that all on to you. And when you sell the property or you can borrow the money back out again, that money is basically tax-free or tax-deferred. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think, investment real estate is a smart way for a young couple like you to go. Stay within this price range until you gain more experience and things like that. And this makes a lot of sense.
Right. Okay, so I think we agree we're going to put offers in on all three properties. And what we're looking at with this first one, the one close to where you live, is we're going to offer $135,000. Now, we might get, say, an 80% first mortgage, which in this case would be $105,000. We can ask the sellers to leave in a 20% mortgage for the remaining $20,000.
It's a carryback like an IOU.
It's a carryback. It's seller finance or vendor finance.
So that's a no money down deal on that one.
Right. 100% financing, 80% comes from the bank, the remaining 20% comes from the seller. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
That'd be a great deal.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, on the second one, the greenhouse, I think we all agree that it's a very good property. It's possibly worth the asking price. What I suggest we do in that case is offer the asking price. However, we might still structure it in a way so that there's no money required on the part of Ryan and Kim.
Yeah, he could ask his dad for the money or her dad for money and say they'd be partners in the deal.
Right, or friends for that matter. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And because this house had a beautiful backyard, was large, and they could put up a guest house, greatly improve the value.
And the house that's already there has a lot of charm, so that gives it extra appeal.
Which they could get a higher loan value then once that was done.
Right.
Good.
And then the third one, the White House, which in some ways is the highest returning property, I think we agreed we'd come in at $110,000. Now, one way of structuring this so that you might need to put in any cash is to ask for a delayed closing. You might ask for a delayed closing of 3 or 4 months. And in the meantime, you would have the right of access to do some of those improvements. For instance, Ryan, you might want to put up that carport already, and then just before you close, you'd send the appraisers back in to get a new appraisal, and instead of coming in at 114, it might come in at 125 or 130 after you've done that work. You get a first mortgage based on that, and that might cover your acquisition cost.
So that means if the value goes up, the banker will lend you more money, which means you put less money down.
Right. And these are just some of the ways. There are, in fact, many, many ways that we cover in the program that you can acquire property without having to put any of your own cash into the deal. The important thing to note is that we're putting in the offers, because until you physically submit an offer, there is no way they're going to accept it. They won't accept nothing.
And if you don't put in an offer, you don't know.
Right.
I mean, the point that we're making here was, remember, we had no money at one time, right?
And that's how I started.
And did people laugh at some of our offers?
Oh, they laughed, they quizzed you, they thought, are you sure you're doing the right thing? Aren't you wasting your time?
Yeah. The thing is, part of the process is just putting in those offers, Have people laugh at you, have them reject you. Even if they say yes, you still have a way out anyway.
Right.
So it costs you nothing.
Well, let's write them up. That won't take long at all, and fire them off, and then we can see what happens.
As Ryan and Kim await their answers, it's time for you to discover the rest of Rich Dad's 6 steps to becoming a successful real estate investor. In the audio and workbook portions of this program, you'll discover how to negotiate a winning deal, where to find financing even if you have little or no money of your own, what to look for during property inspections and other due diligence, how to find the right tenants, how to manage your property for maximum profit, and much more. But now, let's continue your journey on Rich Dad's Roads to Riches. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
When you go into the rest of this program, you'll find a wealth of information on the rest of Rich Dad's 6 basic steps. A reminder, though, all 6 steps are important. If you leave one step out, the process doesn't work. So basically, that's all Dolf and I do. We get up and we go through the 6-step process of looking at properties all day long. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I fully agree, and you've got to remember you've got to have fun during this process too. Well, like you, Robert, I started playing the game Monopoly at a very early age. In fact, we got sick of the original board and made our own out of big folded-out cardboard boxes. But I carried on with real estate, and I bought my first property at the age of 17. And right throughout college, my 8 years there, I kept on buying, so that by the time I finished, I didn't really need a job. And I enjoyed it so much, that's all I've done ever since. I just go around the world now looking at real estate deals and trying to pick the eyes out of the deals I look at.
So the first step for you now is go through the rest of this program, then get up, leave your checkbook, wallet, and credit cards at home, and start looking at property.